Caitlyn Clark has been announced. It's been announced that she's going to be out for at least 2 weeks with a strained quad injury that she sustained against the New York Liberty. She got a MRI after the game. And I think it kind of makes sense. I think that we saw with the just based on the way that she's played early this season, where she kind of like had an ugly triple-double starting the season, had her first game since her sophomore season without hitting a three, and just has kind of, been, she's Caitlyn Clark. She's a great player, but there have been a lot of moments where she hasn't necessarily looked like herself. She had a hard time taking players off the dribble. I watched back a lot of her threes that she missed. A lot of them were going to the right. And I do think that left quad is important. Hey, everybody's left quad is important. Your left quad is important. My left quad is important. But for Caitlyn in particular, because she likes to go to that lefty step back, that is a muscle that gets a lot of wear and tear. And it wasn't a shot that she was able to get to as easily, which I do think is part of the reason that we saw her go through the shooting woes that she did. So that's just kind of, that kind of answers some of my early season questions about Caitlyn Clark. But now, I think it's just on the Indiana Fever to figure out how they are going to survive without her for the next 4 games that are, coming, it's early. It's kind of a good time, if any, for this type of thing to happen. They play the Mystics twice. I believe they play the Sun, and then who else do they play? Let me check quickly. I forgot the last team that they're playing. Oh, the Sky. They're playing the Sky on June 7th. So, 2 teams that don't have a win, and then like an upstart, fun Mystics team that is very much beatable.
I'm just concerned that the W might not even exist in 2 weeks if Caitlyn Clark isn't a part of it. Like, how is that going to work? I don't know how that. I don't know how that's going to happen. I don't know how that's.
Should they just delay this season until she comes back? Should we just?
I mean, apparently, right? That should happen. I mean, I saw a couple people online say that it's going to cease to exist. I don't know. Let's be real. They're gonna be able to hold down the fort. The thing that's going to be interesting, and we talked about this offline with Caitlyn Clark. Her teams tend to have like weird on-off splits that are appropriate for a star of her caliber, but like aren't great barometers for how a team should look with the star, right? And I think Steph Curry goes through the same issue where when they are off the floor, the team struggles to keep the fort held down to the same degree that they have it when the star is on the floor. And that is appropriate, like I said, for a star of that caliber. But the reason why it's noteworthy for Steph and for Caitlyn is because the offense is fully centered around them and centered around their orbit and their ability to shoot the basketball. So that's one thing that I'm really excited to see from the Fever when I watch them. And then when I text you randomly at 2 p.m. on a Sunday talking about, Indiana looks weird. Indiana looks weird in this set. So I'm curious to see how they're going to look without Caitlyn. And this provides a big opportunity for Aaliyah Boston, this is what happens this is the scenario where you have to show why you are the second star on a team, right? And if you can carry a team. And I'm curious to see how she does it. It's going to be really fun. 2 weeks. In a lot of ways, MVP is all about narrative. And as much as it is about stats. And honestly, Napheesa Collier just had to walk through that door after last year. There was a great origin story with the non-foul calls in the WNBA Finals, right? There was no player in the history of basketball has glowed up after a finals loss the way Fee has. Maybe you could say Steph in like 2016 after, that was after that had to do with getting another player. Yeah, they were crying in parking lots, right? Exactly. But that wasn't him doing it. That was his man's. That was his man's. I'm just trying to find. That is the closest thing, right? That is the closest thing that we have.
No, I think no, I think it's. I mean, it's a little bit different because it's very different because of the level of like just how poorly he played and like kind of like the summer of humiliation that he had to go through after. But I think
Fee just glowed up. She had the Unrivaled. She got to the baggage claim. She's on NBA Today every 2 weeks.
Well, she is
out here.
She had the summer you have when you win the title.
Right. Right.
That was the crazy part.
This was supposed to be the hold on. This is the thing though. This is supposed to be the summer of Sabrina, or it's not the spring of Sabrina. What do you say? The winter of? I don't know how you do it in W, but it's supposed to be that, right?
The summer of Jonquil.
But Sabrina was out here pump faking on a rival, coming every 2 weeks, leaving, not even playing like with heart. And Fee was out here like, I'm gonna be a full heel. I'm gonna ball on your. Let's do 1-on-1s. Let's get this workout in. I'm gonna kill all of you guys. Now she's out Now she's out here doing up and under moves. She's out here saying we're not playing championship basketball after she single-handedly plays championship basketball down the stretch of a game and wins it in the second half. She's kicking ass. She's gonna win MVP. It's not even. She was gonna do that even before Caitlyn Clark ended the whole league. Right? She was gonna Fee was already the MVP candidate.
Well, okay, let's say the WNBA ends tomorrow, which it might, which is a real risk, and Fee would obviously be the MVP. Yeah. Exactly. By the way, for a player that everybody says is deferential, leading the W in shot attempts right now. That's what I love to see. Not only did she have that summer, but she added a couple things to her bag. I
want to say something though really quickly. I don't like the comparison right now this year between her and Asia right now, because it's two completely different types of teams. It's one that's washed, that has won before, and that is trying to figure it out on the fly. And Asia's literally carrying them to mediocrity.
Yeah.
She's leading the team in all categories, right? It's just a totally different set of
including assists, which is a huge concern considering you have Chelsea Gray on that team. I think the place that we came out when we talked about this was if you replace them. Now I don't know if Asia on the Lynx works in the same way, because I just think that team is built around Fee's strengths and her versatility, her ability to shoot threes, guard 1 through 5, and her sort of the way that she seamlessly just goes from screen to post and is constantly moving all the time. But let's say you put Fee on the Aces, they're still just as cooked.
Yeah, it's a situation where the Aces just are at the end of their run, right? Minnesota has, not to say that Aces don't have anything to play for. They're playing for titles year in and out as long as A'ja Wilson is on the floor. But there's a different motivation for the Lynx right now. This is the you got me fucked up season. And I love you got me fucked up seasons. They're the best seasons.
I agree.
The crash out seasons, the positive crash out seasons are the seasons we live for, Seerat.
Exactly. Kind of that's like a Steph when they won their last title season. That was one of my favorite.
No. I wouldn't even call it that. It's the 08-09 Lakers when they lost in the finals. And Kobe said, "You know what? Fuck all that.
Yeah.
We're gonna go and win it. We're gonna win 66 games, and we're gonna go win the title."
The best comparison is probably the Spurs when they lost in Game 7 to the Heat, and then Pop made them watch that game back, and they just came at that season, killed everything in the regular season, and it was just clear that they were going to win the finals, and they meet the Heat again and get the ultimate vengeance. It feels like this whole WNBA season is setting up towards a Lynx Liberty finals where the Lynx, just overcome. And those series kind of went similarly as well, where, they went for the NBA went all the way to 7, and for the W it went all the way to 5, and it was just incredibly close. And the next year the Spurs
single-handedly forced Kathy Engelberg to finally put a 7-game series in the finals, which is something that we should.
That's power, baby.
I digress.
That's power.
Yeah,
that's power.
Hopefully we get there. October's a long time away. Let's hope we get there.
You know what
we don't even know if we're gonna get a June team.
You know what the Aces actually remind me of? And again, I'm gonna bring up the Warriors again. But they're kind of in that similar place to the post-title Warriors, where they believe a little bit too much in their own sauce. They believe a little bit too much in their own personnel, their schemes, their style. Where
you're talking about minus a prominent player punching another player in the face, right? Minus that.
I'm even before that. We're not even because that extra that title they won, that was extra. I'm talking after the initial run, where Steve Kerr is just running the same offense, and yes, everything you guys did changed the NBA, but the NBA has adapted and responded to you, and now it's your turn to adapt and respond. That's kind of the places that the Aces are in, where they definitely modernized the game, but the game has caught up, and now all of these teams, they have a lot more depth. They have a lot more versatility in their front court positions. They have a lot more size. And the Aces are kind of playing more basic positional basketball. that everybody else that like, you know, at least like I would say like the Lynx and the Liberty and the Fever are going to just be able to mismatch hunt against you over and over again and beat you. And like, they just haven't adapted to that.
Is this your pitch to Asia to go to the Toronto Tempo?
Hey, so I was listening to the Athletic podcast before this, and they were talking a little bit about free agency in 2026 and how it's going to be so, like people are talking about how it's going to be so insane. They were throwing a little bit of hot water on that because they feel like the reason that everybody's a free agent is because they want to get paid, not necessarily because they want to move.
Exactly.
And you know,
I don't see it either. Like I think I've texted you this, like, who are the big fish that you think are going to go on the move? Like, is Sabrina going to come to the Bay? Not yet.
I don't think
like,
so.
Why would
yeah.
she?
Maybe not yet. I think there's a couple scenarios
Asia...
where, let's say, like the Liberty just somehow fall apart. They're still gonna pay her just as much. Like, you know, like both those teams have all the resources.
Also, like, is New York gonna like stop being like the marketing mecca of America? Like, that's not gonna happen.
And the other only way I see it is like if Sabrina just wants to take over, if she wants to do the Kelsey Plum, like go home and be a number one option, like because she like, let's say they win a title this year and it's just kind of like, what do I do next? Even with that, I'm kind of like, well, I think that if that's what Sab wants, like the Liberty would just sort of like clear space for her to be able to be that player. And it's kind of happening naturally with like Stewie aging and like just the way that John Paul plays.
I don't think if they win a title, she's definitely not going. Even if they don't, I don't see her going. I think she will. I'm going to plug a podcast that I did way, way, way back in the day with Kareth Burke, where we actually interviewed Sabrina in 2020. And she talked about how much she like loved playing in the Bay Area. And if there was a team in the Bay Area, she would end up playing for. I mean, she would want to play for it. So I do think that it is a nostalgic thing. I do think that she's eventually going to play.
Eventually happen, yeah.
For it. I think she's eventually going to play in the Bay. But I just don't think that that's now. So Sabrina, you take her off, right?
Honestly,
the next big fish is.
If I'm Asia,
what?
Why would I not think about it?
You kind of have to, but I don't.
Just look at everything that's happening in the offseason. Just like, if I'm Asia Wilson, I'm consistently improving my game. In the meantime, my team is out a GM. They haven't hired one, and they think that they can do everything by committee. But what's happened is they had this expansion draft where they, you know, decide to protect every player who essentially decided that they want to leave and they want to get paid somewhere else. Which, by the way, if you're a GM, it's your job to be able to predict something like that happening. And it did happen. Then on top of that,
so
you have this situation where Kelsey Plum decides that she wants to go somewhere else, which is fair. Like, she just felt like she wanted to be a number one option. I just don't understand why that couldn't have happened in the context of an offense that has Asia Wilson playing in a front court role, where she's not going to be getting in the way of that, and Chelsea Gray being one of the best playmaking point guards in the league, unless you go and look up what agencies everybody involved in those deals is represented by. And that move so far, like, and I'm willing to die on this hill right now, has made them worse.
You know,
and their depth
so there's
is
an argument.
Worse. And they went
absolutely,
yeah, like and they have not changed their system appropriately either. So like
I
on
think that
so
like,
many different levels, like I said, they feel like they have just kind of settled into, well, this is how we won championships and this is how we're going to win championships, but that's not how things work. Everything evolves, and Asia, I feel like, is evolving. Asia looks better this year, but I don't see anything else in that team other than Jackie Young evolving.
Yeah. Unrivaled star Jackie Young.
Unrivaled star Jackie Young. That's right.
So how much do you put in the stock of, you know, there's only, like, even now, there's only a finite amount of teams that are willing to spend big bread the way that the Aces are, just in terms of resources, right? So how much do you put that into the argument of her staying, right? Because they do have, you know, Mark Davis, say everything you want to say about him, and I have a lot to say about him as a Raiders fan, but he put in the resources in the time, and this is, again, going against your light years, you know, criticism, but he is somebody that has proven that he will shell out a lot of bread and put support around them if need be. I mean, they still have one of the best coaches in the league. They still have a great situation. You know, that's why it gives me pause. But if they don't, you know, what I would love to see in a team that is really like kind of gearing up for this free agency, the Phoenix Mercury. That was going
to be my pick.
Like,
that's like that.
That's the only, she's not going to the Valkyries, even though the Valkyries tried to very much woo her over the All-Star break by having her tour the facilities before their new facilities before the Touch More live pod, which was a strategic, let's call that a strategic setting for the Valkyries, right? And so Valkyries aren't going to get her, I don't think. But you got Nikki Wren. You have a lot of money in Phoenix. They have a practice facility that's right near their arena. They're going to get a lot of resources. Phoenix is a great place to play. They have a built-in history, and they're just a star away, to be honest with you. Like, you pair Asia with Sabali, and what we saw from Sab to start the other Sab, I don't know if they call her Sab, but Sabali, Satu, double S, the god, the unicorn, all the above. You pair them together, that could be something really special.
Yeah.
And, we'll see what happens, and, you can run it up again. But I don't see her leaving at this very moment. This could be something that we could talk about later. I'm sure I'll be on the program if they have it, especially, if the W continues to exist. But we'll see down the line. We'll see how the season goes. But I think at this point, we can firmly say I think Asia's going to stay put at this point.
I would, at least if I was her, use the threat of leaving to apply some pressure onto the Aces to just maybe hire a GM. I don't know.
Yeah. Those are important.
All right, Logan, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for finding. I was so happy to come on.
I know you've had. I know you've just been like, I could feel you wanting to, throw out some of the more of the takes that I know you have as well. And we will definitely. I was
scared. I was really nervous.
We will definitely bring you on again. This was really fun. Always enjoy talking to you. Thanks for popping by.